Welcome to today's experiment. This investigation is from the Stage 2 Material World syllabus. Today we'll be looking at the substance that is created when we add water to cornflour. First of all, our testable question is, what happens to the consistency of cornflour when we change the volume of water added? A little bit of background first. Cornflour, also known as cornstarch, is different from normal flour because it's made entirely of ground corn kernels. Cornflour is used in cooking as a thickener to thicken soups and gravies and sauces. Knowing this, we should be able to make a prediction about what will happen to the consistency of the cornflour when we add water. Our prediction is, the cornflour solution will become thick when we pour the water in, and then thinner with the more water that we add. Before we get to it, let's go over our variables. The dependent variable, or the variable that we want to test, is the consistency of the cornflour. The independent variable, the one that the scientist deliberately changes, is the volume of water added to the cornflour, which we measure in milliliters for this experiment. The controlled variables, or the variables that stay the same throughout the entire investigation, are things like the amount of cornflour we have, the size of the container, and the temperature of the room. Now we get to get our hands dirty. We will need one nice big glass bowl so we can see what's going on, our cornflour, and some scissors to open the packet. We've got a cup measurement and our cornflour. We're going to start with 1 cup, and that's not enough, so we'll add another. Next, we're going to measure out half a cup of water, which is 118 milliliters. Now we give it a mix. Get our hands dirty. Keep an eye on the consistency. Does it seem like a solid or a liquid? To me it seemed quite hard. It seems almost like a solid. But if we add one more half a cup of water, now let's see what it's like. It's a little bit more runny now, but if I punch it, it turns into a solid. Our last half a cup of water. Look at how runny it is now. Look at that consistency. Since we're measuring consistency in this experiment, we're trying to keep an eye on exactly how runny it is or how solid it is. Right now, after 3 half a cups of water, totaling 1.5 cups altogether, it's seeming quite runny when we let it flow freely. But if we punch it, ow! We're going to add a few drops of food colouring, just for some fun. Everything's better with a little bit of colour. As I'm mixing it around, you can see that it's kind of putting up a fight. This substance, while it looks runny, is actually quite difficult to manoeuvre. So for our results, we started with 2 cups of cornflour and half a cup of water, which equates to 118 milliliters. After we started mixing it around, we could clearly see that it was becoming really, really thick. The consistency was very hard, and you can see how difficult it was for me to mix it around with my hand. Next, we added another half a cup of water, which means that we have 236 ml of water in the cornflour solution. Now it's a little thinner and easier to work. The interesting thing about this is that it's quite runny when I separate it a little from the bowl, but it's almost a solid when I punch it. Then we added a third half a cup of water, which means that we now have 1.5 cups or 354 ml altogether in the cornflour solution. We can now see that it's really runny when I move it around gently, but look at what happens when I punch it now. It's like punching a brick wall. Our cornflour solution has become incredibly thick under force, feeling like it has the properties of a solid, but it's really, really runny like a liquid when it's able to flow freely. Conclusion. This substance made from cornflour and water actually has a name. It's called Oobleck, and it has the properties of both a solid and a liquid, meaning that it's actually something we call a non-Newtonian fluid. A non-Newtonian fluid is something that doesn't follow Newton's laws of viscosity, or runniness. Instead, it's pressure dependent, meaning that its consistency changes under force. Just like when I punched the Oobleck, the force turned it into more of a solid, but with something like tomato sauce, it becomes a thinner consistency when you shake it. We can conclude that our prediction was correct, sort of. When we added water the first time, the cornflour turned from a powder into a very thick and sticky substance. The more water we added, the easier it was to move the substance around. When you picked it up and ran it through your fingers like a liquid. But when we applied force to the Oobleck, it became very hard indeed. I had a lot of fun with this experiment and I hope you did too. Thanks for watching.